impact on this. Oh, okay. That these reports do have an impact on district funding. Okay. So it is very key and imperative that this report is being checked. I know that there was a lot of questions that I received in regards to getting IEPs and getting them out before the October 31st deadline. So we'll touch base on that or whatnot. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to interrupt and ask me anytime. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started here. Once again, this is the Troubleshooting Federal Child Count Reports, EMIS Alliance training here. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and go to the overview on page 3. Once again, the federal child count, which is the FCC report, located in your level 2 reports in the beginning of the year, beginning of the year collection. Okay, this report is going to include students with disabilities who are receiving special education services according to their IEPs as of October 31st. This report is used in determining the amount of special education. Part B, this would include your IDEA and early childhood special education funds allocated to the state. This report is collected from all districts except for ESCs and JVS schools through the education management, that would be EMIS, okay? And this would be all your information that is submitted through the data collector to ODE, okay? Just keep in mind the main point of this Alliance training, this presentation will focus on just troubleshooting the FCC reports, which are generated through you guys' submissions to ODE, okay? So like I said before, any questions that you guys may have, feel free to ask them at any time. Okay. So with these collections in the FCC Snapshot, okay, these collections are once again, they are taken at the beginning of the year collection, which is your S collection. Okay. So keep that in mind. These collections are scheduled to close December 20th. December 20th or whatnot is the last day, I believe, for the S collection. Okay. So basically, you want to make sure that you guys get, even after the October 31st deadline, whatever you guys have special ed wise, you guys just want to make sure that you get that information in by that deadline of December 20th. Okay. So basically, ODE will recognize those special education events and those ETRs, IEPs, reevaluations, whatever you had amended wise, by December 20th. Okay. Keep in mind that there's no appeal for the federal child count reports. So you just want to make sure that that information is reported as accurately as possible. Shelly, is there any questions in the chat? I see the chat game too, or is that something else?
December 20th is the snapshot date.
That's correct. Right. Well, they're scheduled to close. The S collection is scheduled to close, I believe, December 20th. The snapshots are usually done. So basically, from what I was told, this was about a couple weeks ago, that they do a snapshot October 31st. Okay. But seeing as though that they know that there's a lot of IEPs and RIEPs and all the other good stuff that get done after October 31st, okay? They're saying basically that whatever you guys can get in by December 20th or whatnot, they're still going to go up into that date, okay? So the snapshot is just like, okay, that's just kind of like a beginning phase. Whatever you guys get in, you want to make sure that you get in by December 20th or whatnot before the beginning of the S collection closes, if that makes sense. I know in the past or whatnot that October 31st was always the deadline, but they also extended out. Okay. So because they know that there's a lot of IEPs and everything that are not written out in time. Okay. So if you're able to get it in, you want to make sure that you get in before the close of the beginning of the year collection closes out. Did that answer their question?
I think we're good.
Okay. So with your FCC reports, a lot of you guys are familiar with, these are in your level 2 reports, okay? This is going to be your federal child count detail, which is basically just indicating what students are on what, okay? So when you go into your level 2 reports, you're going to see a federal child count detail and then you're going to see a statement of assurances. Your statement of assurances is basically saying, okay, guys, you guys may have 20 something kids on a SLD disability. You guys may have, you know, 13 kids on autism. And so it's going to give you a breakdown of what classifications your IEPs are in, okay, and what your special ed is in. The federal child count details is going to give you basically a breakdown of your report in terms of who's all on IEPs, okay, whose record is valid, okay, and all the other good stuff there. Keep in mind that these reports are updated nightly. So if you guys can get in your data, I know a lot of you guys submit every other day. Sometimes you guys submit every day. That's great. Just keep in mind that these reports are updated nightly. They contain data also that's reported by other districts. Okay, and you want to go ahead and you want to review the most recent version of the reports throughout the data collection process. You want to make sure, of course, and a lot of you guys are pretty much on top of things, that you're just basically reviewing your data as soon as you get it. Whatever level 2 report that you get that's most recent and updated, you just want to make sure that you check for any errors, if you check for any updates and say, hey, wait a minute, I had this kid on this, why is it changed? You can go back and see what corrections or whatnot, or actually what data has been changed. Okay. So when you get that information, just make sure that you go ahead and submit to the data collector so ODE can do their processing. Now, do not be alarmed if the data is not updated right then and there. Sometimes, as you guys know, it could be a day or two or whatnot. I've seen instances where it's maybe 3 or 4 days for your FCC reports. Sometimes that's just attributed to the data collector. And in terms of what ODE is doing as far as updates on their end. So you just want to make sure or whatnot, just you want to get that most recent update. Okay. Any questions so far? It's quiet. Okay. So with your level 2 reports or whatnot, and they give great snapshot examples of where you can access those reports. A lot of you veterans and EMIS whizzes in there know exactly where to go. And this would be here highlighting your beginning of the year collection. And that would be, of course, your SOAS beginning of the year collection. And that would be from ODE, which is half circled there, your level 2 report. So once you go ahead and click on that link, of course, all you guys are familiar and you're aware, it's going to give you guys a breakdown of each report that you have, whether it be, like I said, your FCC reports, in some cases or whatnot, it gives different multiple categories in which you guys can access your reports from what ODE has seen. Okay. So once you click on your level 2 reports down below, you're going to go ahead and you're going to see your FCC federal child count detail, and you're also going to see your federal child count statement of assurances. Now, this is a shortcut on this, on the screenshot here, where you're going to see where if you type in the FCC name under the report name includes, type in FCC, and it's going to give you a shortcut to where it's going to bring up everything that has to basically entail with your FCC reports. So that's going to be, like I said before, your federal child count detail, which is your FCCD 001. Okay, and then also your federal child count statement of assurances. The assurances, like I said before, is just a summary, a quick summary of what students are on what. Okay, does not give names. It does not give, all the other information that the child count detail report gives. It's just saying, okay, for example, you guys may have, like I said before, 24 kids on SLD for your disabilities. You guys may have 10 total kids for autism. So it kind of gives you just pretty much a quick summary. Your detail report is going to lay out what disability that child is on. It's going to give you a name, your SSID attached to that name, all that other good stuff on that report for the actual detail report. This also report is going to give you your fatals, criticals, warnings, and information. Okay, so just keep in mind that the details no different than the FTE detail report. It's just on a special ed level. Okay, so it's the same format. It's going to give you your fatals, your criticals, warnings, and information where you guys can use your macro and kind of filter through. Okay, I have all my fatals here, warnings here, and you guys can navigate through your report to get that information there. Okay. So this here is just basically showing you a shortcut on how to attain those reports. Okay. So, and like I mentioned a little bit previously, in terms of formatting the FCC detail report, okay, when you go into the actual detail report, this is an example, and I kind of just made up a list here of some phony names here. So you can kind of see what example, and if you guys can see this report, just let me know um, if you guys can see it or whatnot. Are we good? Are we good, Shelly? Can you guys see this?
Is what he's asking.
Yeah, one, I can hardly hear you, and two, I'm just still seeing the slideshow.
Okay, hold on.
Oh, now I can hear you.
Okay, you can hear me? Okay. Just want to know if you guys can see my report here. If not, I can just
No, you'll probably have to reshare and share the whole screen, not just
gotcha.
the Chrome window.
Gotcha. Okay.
Did that pop up in the video when we were?
All right, just let me know. I kind of created a spreadsheet here of what the actual detail report will look like. Okay. Like I said before, it's going to give you basically a detailed report of every student that you have. Okay. Their EMIS ID, their SSID. In column C, you'll see the severity, okay, which you'll see informational. And then if you have any criticals, warnings, or even fatals, you'll see that in column C. Okay. You have in columns A and B, it's basically your district IRN and of course the school building IRN, okay? In columns J, you'll actually see the error, and we'll go over that as this presentation keeps going here to basically break down what these errors are, okay? And then basically what these errors mean, or not errors, but necessarily just codes and what they mean. Columns K, you'll just see where it just indicates where there's no errors, okay? And then you'll see, which is for every EMIS coordinator, the dreaded no IEP reporting, okay? So I'll put that up there. So just in case, like I said before, when we go through the actual codes, we can kind of break down on how to get those errors fixed there. Columns O, you'll see the actual disability condition, okay? And like I said before, this is just basically just a breakdown of what you'll see on the actual detail report. Okay, the detail reports are just going to give an extensive breakdown of each kid, what they have, what code they are basically categorized as. Okay, so a lot of you guys are familiar with this, but I just wanted to kind of give you guys a quick visual there. Okay, any questions so far? Okay. So moving on here. And just to review, just kind of asking these questions here. A lot of you guys are familiar with this here, but just want to kind of give a refresher. Are you using your most recent version of the report, which is basically your latest submission into the data collector? You want to make sure that you basically have your CSV report, which is your level 2 report, open and be able to format to where you can review your information, review any type of errors or any type of misinformation you may have. Okay. And basically just the last thing, just making sure that you basically can apply the filters to the columns. A lot of you guys are familiar with this as well. It's a lot easier to navigate these reports where you can filter them out and see which is what your fatals are. If you don't have any fatals, you guys rock, you guys are awesome or whatnot. If you don't, excuse me, if you do have fatals or whatnot, then it's basically you can use your macro to where you can navigate to those fatals and get that information faster there, okay, on your report. So that's just a quick check there. Moving on. So in troubleshooting the FCC detail reports, okay, and this next series of slides is basically going to do some reviews where they basically can review data, okay, and then go over the severity codes, the numbers in which those severity codes represent, a federal child count flag, who is not, excuse me, who is and is not included on the FCC report. Of course, the report data and the status codes and corrective actions. Okay. So if you guys have any questions pertaining to this, feel free to interrupt me and say, Tim, just stop. I need to ask a question pertaining to this particular status code. So let's move on. So the severity codes, like I brought up before, your severity codes in column C, okay, are going to give you a breakdown of what exactly the severity codes are pertaining to those kids. So for example, you're going to have your informational, your warnings, criticals, and fatals. Okay. A lot of you guys are pretty much aware in terms of how to filter those out and use your macro to go ahead and navigate who's on your information, who is basically at a warning, critical or fatal. Okay. Of course, you guys are fully aware that the report is sorted from the least severe to the most severe. So basically, all your information is going to be seen up top. Fatals are going to be seen at the bottom, of course. Okay. The severity codes are going to be noted for each status code. Okay. So basically, like I said before, you want to make sure that you review the severity codes. Make sure that, like I said before, that information is correct for your informational. If you have fatals, of course, you guys know those are the ones to check first. Okay. And just make sure you just navigate moving backwards. So you got your fatals you want to start with first, then move to your criticals, and then warnings, etc. Okay. This here down below just gives a snapshot of what I showed previously, which highlights column C, which is severity codes. Okay. And of course, the four columns there, not columns necessarily, but basically sections in which they focus on. Okay. Any questions so far before I move on?
Yes, hold on.
Yes.
So that I, W, C, and F, we have linked the explanation report also on the EMIS page. So if you guys want to know codes, and the report will explain some of those things. It's only 10 or 11 pages long, but we link that for you too. Yes, Shelley happens to have a printout of it. She's modeling. And oh, look, you have it too. Wonderful. Okay. That's your guide to kind of get some explanations.
We
when-
struggled finding it when we were going through the training, so.
Yeah, we
it's-
wanted to
it's
let you
helpful
know.
Have, so
Yeah.
you guys don't have to look for it, so on the EMIS page, it's there.
Thank you,
Okay.
Tim.
No problem. Thanks, Rebecca. Appreciate it. So moving on here, the federal child count flag. Okay. This flag here is what you're going to see, okay, on your actual federal child count report. Okay. And this is going to be highlighted in columns L. And basically, this is just indicating if the student is intended to be included in the federal child count, which of course is going to give the indication of the Y there. Okay. Now, if you see the N there, then that lets you know that that student is not included in the federal child count. Okay. So you want to go ahead and make sure that you review all your students on the report, regardless of the flag. But you just want to make sure as well that you're paying attention in column L to make sure, like, hey, this student is included in the federal child count. Okay. And basically, if they're not included, why are they not included or whatnot? And you can go ahead and basically look at the reason to determine or whatnot why that is. Okay. Sometimes, like I said, it can be as little as the dates. It could be just as small as of errors, which it could pretty much throw off your report. Okay. So you want to make sure or whatnot that you check this information. Okay. And make sure that it's as accurate as it possibly can be. Okay. If there's any questions, like I said before, feel free to drop them in the chat. But this column L to me is very important because, like I said before, this just lets you know to say, hey, this kid is basically counted towards your report, and your district will be satisfied or whatnot, or treasurers, because they'll know that, hey, they're getting funding for this kid. If they're not, and it has a letter in there, then you just want to verify and make sure that your information is correct in Dazzle. Okay. So who is included on this FCC report? Okay. In most cases, students count at the resident district, except for students attending the following: community schools, okay, STEM districts, okay, and Buckeye United, which would basically be categorized as a DYS school, okay. Non-public students receiving related services count at the traditional district, providing the related services if an active IEP event is reported as of October 31st. Okay, so for those non-public school students or whatnot, okay, they receiving related services count at the traditional district, providing that related services if an active IEP, okay, keep in mind it has to be active, is reported as of October 31st. Okay. So basically, they want to make sure that for those people, excuse me, students receiving those services, make sure that that IEP is reported as of October 31st to receive that funding there. Okay. Any questions pertaining to this particular rule or basically who's on the FCC reports before I move on? Okay, so moving on here. Who is not included on the FCC report? Okay, students with a disability as of October 31st who are not being reported with an active IEP event as of October 31st. Okay, students reported with the following IEP outcomes. Okay, so a lot of you guys are going to pretty much be familiar with these actual outcomes, but I'll go over them here. The first one you have is the parent refusal. Second is not served. And the third is reported in due process. These are the three, okay, with the reported outcomes there who will not be, included on the FCC report, okay? You want to refer to your FCC Level 2 report explanation, and this section will include in the US DOE count for additional information and exceptions. So basically what this is letting you know, okay, on your report, when you scroll all the way over, you're going to see a report explanation for these kids, okay? And it's basically going to let you know like, hey, these are reasons or whatnot why these kids are not included on your report, okay? A lot of you guys are pretty much familiar with this section here. Like I said before, if you have any questions, let me know. A lot of this is going to be a review for a lot of you guys. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And I have a question, comments, and then we have a question in the room. I
Sure.
have a note here, that expelled students in OTC are not yet included. Or
Correct.
they're not, so
Correct.
where do they get reported?
So the thing is with the expelled students or whatnot for right now, apparently from what do or ODE is basically saying on the notes that I have here, for expelled students or whatnot, right now they're working on actually creating a IEP outcome for them to where, for example, if they were on an IEP and they are expelled or whatnot, they'll have an outcome or whatnot, basically saying, hey, this student's expelled, but they had an IEP to where that district can get funding up until the date that student is expelled. Okay. They just haven't came up with that update yet. Okay. I know that was a question that was brought up at the little seminar I went to, but they're just working on getting that because there was a lot of districts who had expelled students and they weren't getting any funding or the district wasn't getting any funding at all. So they're working on getting that outcome updated.
Perfect, and then we have a question in the room.
Sure.
So we have preschool students that are on IEPs or have services provided through the Tri-County ESC.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those students, if they are truly in the Tri-County program and not in our Hazel Harvey program, with like just related services, speech or OT, they are monitored and managed by Tri-County, but they share them with us in Progress Book.
Okay.
I have two students right now that are not showing up in Progress Book, so I don't see them in same goal, and I'm worried that now we are not going to get any funding for these two students if they were not part of this count as of October 31st.
And you're not seeing them on the FCC report at all? They're just not coming up at all?
Well, Tim, this is Jody, and I don't have access
Oh,
to that.
hey, what's up, Jody? How you doing?
I'm great.
Okay, so what I'll do is, Jody, and we're supposed to link up this week anyway.
Yes.
I'll go ahead and share that list with you, and then we can
Okay.
kind of go over it, and I'll email it to you. I know that that was a point of emphasis you wanted to touch on, so
Yes.
I'll email, no problem. I'll email it to you as soon as we're done here, and then we'll go over there.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
No problem, Jody.
One more question.
Yeah, and then this is.
Yeah, sure.
Tim, this is Lori.
Hey, Lori.
We have a couple preschool students who had their initial IEP
Mhm.
that were identified with like a possible IEP, but then the parent refused services.
Mhm.
But in Progress Book, they're coded as an IEP, and under the non-compliance ID, it says parental choice. But we do not have an IEPR
Should that have been an IEPR on an initial IEP for a preschool student?
Well, the IEPR is only if there was a if it was a parental refusal. Did the parent basically reject the IEP or whatnot, during the actual initial meeting? Do you know?
Yeah, the student was identified with a developmental delay, but the parents didn't want any services, and that was at the meeting.
Okay, gotcha. So that would then need to just be updated to reflect that. Okay. So then, basically when you're reporting those kids or whatnot, that'll show that they basically didn't want the services or whatnot. Because anytime that there's a review through your district and they'll sit up there and say, okay, produce me the paperwork or whatever the case may be, right? You want to sit up there and show that. So then that way ODE knows, what I mean, that your data is up to date and as accurate as possible. You know what I mean? So you just want to
Right.
basically make sure that that is reflected.
If a parent refuses, do you have on the FD tab, they still have that disability, or do you take that out?
Well, you would basically just take it out because there's a parent refusal. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
So it would be no reason for you to, because that in the FD tab, it will basically indicate that that IEP is basically active. Do you understand what I'm saying? So if
Yeah.
the parent is saying, I don't want my child to have these services, and then you have them marked in the FD, in the FD, the system is thinking that this kid has an active IEP. You see what I'm saying?
Okay. All right, thank you for clarifying that.
Oh, no problem. Any other questions, guys? And at least, like I said, keep them coming or whatnot. I don't mind at all. So, like I said before, if you guys don't have any other questions, I'll just move on or whatnot. So for your FCC report data, okay, and in columns OP, and this is basically highlighted down below. So on this level 2 report, if you scroll all the way over in columns O and P, you're going to see the disability condition code. Now, this condition code you guys are pretty much familiar with. When you guys set up the IEP in Dazzle, okay, you basically set each kid up with a disability condition, okay? And that code is reflected when you guys submit your data to the data collector. Okay, so whatever you guys have in Dazzle, that's going to reflect in your level 2 report. Okay, so for these disability condition codes, the students must be reported to EMIS with a disability as of October 31st to be included on this report. Now, that's not saying that if you guys have IEPs for students written after October 31st, they won't show, okay, in terms of your level 2 reports, they just won't reflect on the FCC report, okay? These are basically all the kids that are basically shown with a disability condition reported as of October 31st, okay? So you want to make sure that when you guys are reviewing this report, that it's just, like I said, as accurate as possible, that is updated, okay, for accuracy, okay? The student ages as of October 31st are also going to be reflected in columns P. So as you can see there where it says student age number, okay, that is the student's age as of October 31st. Keep that in mind. Sometimes that I know with the preschoolers or whatnot and those kiddos, the IEPs are not basically active, I believe, until the age of 3. You guys can jump in and say, Tim, you're wrong. How dare you? Or you're right, keep going. But once their birth date hits, then that's when that IEP is active. Okay, so it does not matter if you guys, there's no extra credit for setting it up sooner, okay? With your coordinators or whatnot, you just want to be aware for those preschoolers, once they turn the age of 3, once that birth date is active, then that's when that IEP becomes active, okay? So just be aware of that, okay? And be cautious of that. Any questions pertaining to the ages? I know sometimes that, some people will kind of go a little bit, freakish or freak out or whatnot. In terms of, hey, we're not getting this credit until, and I'm like, well, when does the student turn 3? And then, that kind of resolves it. But is there any questions pertaining to the disability codes or anything like that before I move on? Okay, I'm just taking a quiet point here as no. Okay, so on this level 2 report, you will see in columns N, okay, down below, which is highlighted, that is your legal district of residence, okay? So that's just basically the IRN for the legal district, okay? For the federal child count, the alternate IRN, okay? This here will be populated, and I'll go into this later on, with a status code of 06 FC0006 with a district IRN where the student will count. Okay, so basically this is just letting you know that this is where the actual student will count for that particular IRN. Okay, as you can see in column S, there is no alternative IRN. So basically for right now, all the funding is going to column N, the legal district of residence. Okay. In columns U through X, you will see the sent to reasons and IRNs, okay? And this is just basically if whatever you have in your FS standing will reflect in columns U through X, okay? So whatever you guys have set up, whenever that student enrolls and you guys have a lot of sent tos and maybe this being split between this district and this district, okay? That information in your FS standing is going to reflect in columns U through X. Okay, so just keep that in mind. All right, so if you're looking at it and you're saying, wait a minute, why in columns U is saying it's sent to reason code? Okay, that's just letting you know, for example, they have an OE in the first column there, okay, or the first section there. That's letting you know that that student was open enrolled. Okay, so like I said before, those codes are coming from your FS standing. So whatever you guys have set up there is going to reflect in columns U through X. Any questions to this here? It's quiet, so I'm gonna move on. Feel free to interrupt me. So-
We're missing a lot of what he's saying.
Tim, hold on 1 second. When you switch slides, you must,
Oh, okay. Sorry about that, guys. So like I said before, let's move on here. For your report data, okay, and this is just going into your level 2 reports, okay? Columns M, as in Mary, as you see below, this is just indicating what the actual LRE code is, okay? So that's just letting you know, okay, for example, whatever you have set up in Dazzle in the student profile, or I know a lot of you guys use same goal or whatnot to import that information, okay? So with these LRE codes, this is just basically indicating the type of code or whatnot that actual special ed profile is classified as. Okay, so basically, like I said before, you want to make sure that all that information aligns in same goal if you guys use that. If you guys do it manually, just like I said, you just want to communicate with your special ed coordinators or whatnot to make sure that all those codes match up, that everything is aligned. Okay, because like I said before, that does play a difference in your funding for your district. Okay, in columns Q and R, these are sources here, codes, these indicate what data the report is looking at. So for example, okay, you have your LRE, this is your SRC code. So down below, you'll see like a column, excuse me, like an 8, a 8 of 5 or whatnot, okay? This is just indicating for the district what code there that you're using, okay? Which typically, like I said before, is going to be updated in same goal or manually inputted, okay? A lot of you guys are familiar with this. This kind of makes it a little bit more, I would say, kind of complicated to understand. My whole thing is with your special ed, you just want to make sure that you guys have the following things in place: your LRE code, your disability condition code, okay? In terms of if the student, like what percentage of time that student is out of the classroom, okay? And the actual dates in which the IEP starts and ends, okay? Those are the main things, okay? You want to confirm, like I said before, any preschool kids that you guys have set up. You just want to make sure, like I said before, especially with them 3-year-olds or if they're about to turn 3, you just want to make sure that those dates start at that time so you guys can get the appropriate funding for those students. Okay. In columns R, you'll just see where it just basically just gives a description of the special education basically code. So for example, it has a GE record, which is basically indicating to you guys, hey, this GE record checks out okay. So for example, if you guys have an SLD student there with a LRE code of IE 13, great. It's going to give you basically a valid GE record. Okay. Down below, you'll see the dreaded no IEP reported, and we'll go over that. Okay. Just to basically kind of reassure you guys what to do and in terms of what to input there. Okay. Like I said before, this report is nothing new that you guys haven't already seen. This is just pretty much just a review, just to kind of give you guys a breakdown of particularly what each column represents. Okay. But mainly you want to pay attention to columns M, which is your actual LRE code. This is just indicating the percentage of time outside the classroom or whatnot, or whatever that student is classified as for that particular special ed record. Any questions so far? Okay, so for your source codes, okay, this here gives you a breakdown of what actually these source codes are and what they represent. This is a great reference to use, okay, just in case you guys say, hey, like, what's going on? What's this code 8? What is this representing? Okay, so for your code 8, for example, I'm going to work my way backwards here. This is your GE record. Okay, so this is just indicating, okay, that basically all these kids have an active GE record, which is your special ed record. Okay, code 7, which is your FN270. This is an override. Okay, and we'll get into that later on. Okay, but basically your source code 7 is your FN270 override. For source code 5, that is the no IEP reported. So for that particular student, it's letting you know, hey, we don't have an IEP for this kid. Now, there is some cases where you guys may have IEPs in, and I will explain that later on because sometimes that can get kind of confusing. Okay, but for the meantime, and for source 5 or source code 5 is letting you know that there's no IEP reported. For code 3, the student's age is not 3 to 21. Okay, so that's basically, for example, anyone that's not the age of 3 and over the age of 21, you'll see the source code there, okay, of 3. And then for source code 1, no disability on October 31st. So basically, any kid or whatnot that was not established before the October 31st deadline, you'll see the source code 1 indicated in columns Q. Any questions there? And Rebecca and Shirley, let me know if you still hear a delay here, because I'm kind of paranoid about that now. Okay, so for your district LRE and your source codes continued here, and this is just kind of giving you a breakdown of what, if you do see any of these codes, this is what they represent. Okay. You have your source code 9, which is your how received. Okay. So this will be for any students with the disability, the LRE codes there, which is your IE 39. This is basically indicating here for your ages 5 and up, and who is not grade level for preschoolers. Okay. And then your basically code there, okay, will be ages 6 and up, grade level preschool or whatnot. So basically for anything that's 9, you want to check with your preschool there, kiddos, and just make sure that they're basically marked accordingly. If they've moved up or whatnot, it's just going to give you an indication like, hey, you just want to kind of basically look at these kids here and just say, okay, for example, if they've moved on to kindergarten, okay, just make sure that that IEP is just as up to date and basically current as possible. Okay. I don't want anyone to be alarmed when they see the 9. It's not a freak out or whatnot. It's just basically just check to see what those records are at that current time. For basically code C, this is just how received, and this is for your IE 51. For your IEs that you see there, those are going to be reflected on columns M, okay, for your LRE codes, okay? So just keep that in mind. So that's where they're getting all these course codes, or excuse me, source codes from in columns Q. So columns Q is going to be reflective of column M, okay? Source code A, which is basically a lot of these codes you probably won't see a lot, okay? But this is just giving you a definition and breakdown of what each of these codes represent. Okay, for column C, A, and B, there's not a lot of those codes that are pretty much seen on these reports. Okay, but if you do have these source codes come up, this is what this represents, and it's reflecting to say, hey, this is what to look out for. Okay, so this is pretty much a good reference to have just in case you say, hey, I'm not familiar with this source code. What does this represent? You have this here as a reference to use. Okay, and they give a good snapshot down below here which they highlight columns Q and R to basically give you kind of a reference there on what to look out for. Okay, so this is just a simple breakdown of the report. Okay, like I said, a lot of you guys pretty much are familiar with this report and how to navigate through it. Okay, if you have any questions, feel free to ask, but this is just pretty much a review for you guys there. Any questions so far? Okay, so for your review, okay, and this is just a quick check here. You just want to make sure that all the students are appearing on a report as expected. If you guys have any surprises, you guys are fully aware just to go back and make sure that you checked and make sure that all the information is as accurate as possible. If you feel that anything is out of whack, please feel free to print out that level 2 report. Check it out, shift through it for errors. Make sure that everything is accurate and up to date. This level 2 report for your FCC report is also a good foundation to use to say, hey, what can we do to get this information? Sometimes the IEPs may not even be updated, or your reevaluation IEPs, they may not be updated. So you just want to kind of basically make an asterisk, make a star, highlight the name, just to kind of keep you guys aware of what's not, current or whatnot. Have these IEPs been written up? Do we have the paperwork in for the kids? Okay, just to make sure that we can go ahead and do that import there. Okay, so it's a lot of factors that play into it, but at the end of the day, like I keep emphasizing on every training that I do, you just want to make sure that your communication is up to par with everyone in those district and your departments, just to make sure that you guys are on the same page, that you guys can report the most accurate information as possible. Okay. Has someone verified the data for accuracy? And a lot of times you guys can, I don't know if you guys go to Starbucks or you guys, sometimes you guys might not even get along, but for the sake of the district and making sure that, the students' data is accurate and also the district is getting the funding, just meeting with each other up. It can be sometimes twice a month or whatever, just to make sure that this information is reviewed. Okay. And if there's any questions you may have, you guys can go ahead and get those questions answered within your district. Okay. And making sure that this data is basically submitted, okay, on a timely manner. If you guys don't sit up there and submit often, I suggest you do. So basically, if there's any errors or inaccuracies that you have, you guys can submit and get that data up to date. Okay. Status codes. And this is what I want to kind of touch on here. Okay. On your level 2 report, you will see, okay, in columns K and columns J, the status codes. Okay. And basically what those status codes indicate. Okay. So basically on your report here, and let me know if you guys can see this screen here. And I'm going to go ahead and put it up here. Give me 1 second here. And just let me know when you guys can see it here. You guys see
We're
it?
good.
Okay, great. Great. So this next section here, what we're going to discuss, and this is just a level 2 report that I concocted here, okay? Columns J is going to have your status, okay? This is what the actual status code here for the FCC report here. So you'll see a lot of FC codes here, okay? And then next to it in columns K, you'll see the description for these particular status codes, okay? I'm going to expand this here a little bit so you guys can see. So columns J, you got your status code. Columns K, the actual code description, okay? So for example, for your 08 status code, this is letting you guys know from ODE that there was no errors in identifying, that ODE identified with processing your information, okay? So for those 08 codes, you guys are in the clear, you guys are good, you guys can toast to that. I know you guys can't drink at work or whatever, but you guys can celebrate to let you guys know that there's no errors, okay? Now, down below, and I'll kind of navigate back here to the original presentation here in a few, but down below, you'll see the status code, which is your 04 code, okay? This here is letting you guys know that there's no IEP reported for the October 31st date. Now, that does not necessarily mean that you guys do not have an IEP in place. That's just letting ODEs, basically letting you guys know, hey, there was no IEP reported as of October 31st. This could have been to where the IEP was established in the summer, at the end of the school year, or wherever the case may be. And we'll go over alternatives to get that information resolved. But I just want to kind of give you guys a visual of what this section occurs in terms of status codes in column J, and this is all in your level 2 report, okay? And what the status codes represent in column K, what those descriptions are. Any questions to this before I move on here? You guys are quiet, so that kind of scares me. I didn't know if you guys had any questions or not, so okay.
We're good.
Okay. Okay, so back to the presentation here. So like I said, I just went over columns J and K, which basically gives you an indication on what to look for, okay? Now, like I said before, okay, you want to make sure that you check these codes as frequently as possible, okay? So if there's anything that's out of whack or out of, that you feel like, hey, this is not accurate, you guys can go back and just kind of, change or basically just go back and make any changes that you need to make, okay? For a status code, this is the FC0001, okay? And this is if you filter on all those codes there, this is just going to basically reflect on October 31st, students' age is outside of the 3 to 21 range, okay? And this is going to be a fatal error, okay? So what you want to do is just verify that the student's reported date of birth on the student demographic, this is the GI record, you want to confirm the age, okay? Like I said before, if they are not 3 as of that particular day or whatnot, then that funding is not going to count towards your district. If they are over 21 or whatnot, okay, that's going to give you a fatal error on this actual level 2 report. So you want to make sure that you verify those date of births, okay? If the student's date of birth is incorrect, of course, you guys are all aware, you want to make sure that that correction is reflected in same goal for your imports, or if you're manually importing that information, or excuse me, manually inputting the information in Dazzle, you want to make sure in the student profile under special education that the information is basically reflective in terms of the dates there, and then the birth dates in the general tab in Dazzle as well, okay? So that's your 0001 status code, okay? This is what it all entails here, okay? For your status code, this is for your FC0002. Okay, so for this here, this code represents that you're unable to translate the LRE. You must report a FN270 element. Now, this is going to be critical errors that you're going to see on the level 2 report. Okay, so anytime that you sit up there and they filter out for your level 2s, your critical errors, okay, for your 002 errors, okay, your LRE, basically they're saying it's kind of out of whack. So what does that mean? Okay, this is basically going to be referring to your source codes, which we referred to earlier. Source code 7, which is your FN270 override, or source code 8, which is your GE record, okay? For your FCC flag, you're going to have a no. So what does that no indicate? That no indicates that this student is basically not counting towards your district on your FCC report. So you want to go ahead and whenever you see that flag, go to that particular student and let's try to see what we can do to get that flag moved to Y so we can go ahead and get that funding for your district. Okay, so as of October 31st, the student's IEP outcome must agree with the student's age and grade level. Okay, so you want to confirm and just kind of touch base with your special ed coordinators to make sure that those outcomes, okay, are on par with the student's age and grade level. For ages 3 and 5 and in preschool, the district should be in the IE 51 to IE 72 range. Okay, highlight that. You can sit up there and circle it, whatever it is you need to do. Okay, because that is important. Okay, that classification applies to those preschoolers age 3 to 5. If not, okay, report in district within this range on the FN 270. Okay, so like I said before, if you guys have any preschoolers within the age of 3 to 5, okay, the LRE should reflect the IE 51 to IE 72 range. For ages 5 and over, and in kindergarten or higher, the district should be in the IE 13 to IE 39 range, if not in district within the range on the FN 270. So a lot of you guys are pretty much aware. Anything for ages 5 and over in kindergarten or higher grades, of course, you guys know for your LRE, you want to make sure that those codes there reflect IE 13 or higher to the IE 39 range. Are there any questions to this? I know pertaining to preschool, there seems to kind of be some mix-ups there. So any questions in the room so far? So for your age, grade level, and expected LRE, this is just a breakdown here in terms of what they're doing is they're just breaking down for the preschool, okay? Ages 3 to 5, what the LRE is expected to be. Of course, like I said before, which is your IE 51 to IE 72. This here is going to be in your student's profile on your special education tab, okay? For your IEP. So basically, like I said before, you want to make sure that for preschool grade level kids, that range is in effect for preschool. For age 4 kindergarten grade levels, okay, also it's the same range, okay. Ages 5 and up, and this is for kindergarten grade levels on up, okay. You have your IE 13 to IE 39 range, which what a lot of you guys are pretty much familiar with, okay. Ages 6 and up, any grade level, and this is including preschool, count as school age students, okay. So for that school age there, okay, the LRE is expected is IE 13 to IE 39. Now, question for you guys. Do any of you guys have any preschoolers that are age 6 at this current time? Just curious.
I got some no's and maybe I think we do.
Oh, wow.
One.
One. Okay. You just want to just make sure, and I'm pretty sure you're on top of it, whoever that is, that LRE range is from basically IE 13 to IE 39 to basically be counted as a school age student. I know you pretty much are aware, but just want to kind of rehash that. Okay, so whenever you go back or whatnot to your office or whatnot, just check that student just to make sure that that LRE range is in effect there and that's current or whatnot with what's here aligned with ODE. Okay, so you guys can kind of get the funding there and it won't be any mix-ups in your level 2 reports. So in reporting the FN 270 element, okay, and this is basically updated from October 31st. The current IEP outcome and FN 270 value should not be the same. So what are they talking about, Tim? Okay, so if you look down below, okay, you'll see there the status code in column J, which is highlighted in the red below, okay? It's basically unable, letting you know that the 002 is unable to translate the LRE and must report the FN 270 element, which is in that special education tab there. Okay. So it's going to give you a flag of no, which is letting you know that that student is not being counted or whatnot towards your district. Okay. And that basically there's no code there. There's an effect. And columns N is letting you know the district IRN. Okay. So even though you guys have a disability code, okay, it's basically letting you know, hey, we want to go back here and check this LRE, make sure that, like I said before, if it's not on par with what you guys have, you got to report the FN 270 element there. For the ones that are correct there up top, it's highlighted in green. Like I said, the FC0008 code is letting you guys know that there's no errors in your ODE processing, okay? So that flag there is going to indicate a Y, which is saying, hey, this student is being counted towards your district. You guys are getting the funding. You guys are in the clear. And columns M is letting you know the LRE code, which is basically starting out as your IE 13, okay? Disability code is in columns O, so you'll see which code they're on. The student's age, okay? And then actually, like I said before, the GE record, which is just indicating that there's an active GE record for that particular student. Any questions to this here? Are there any instances in the room? Just curious where the FN270 element has been reported for a particular student? Just curious.
Getting crickets.
Okay. So that's a good thing. Okay, so let's move on here. And this is just kind of further elaborating on the FN270 reporting. Okay, so when you're completing the FCC report, the department will review the LREs on the latest reported IEP event effective as of October 31st. Okay, so the value in the FN270 element will take precedence. Okay, so when you're reporting the value of the FN270 value is not limited to preschool and kindergarten. Keep that in mind. Highlight that, put asterisks by it. So the FN270 value is not limited to preschool and kindergarten, okay? So for this element to be valid for the FCC count report, okay, the student must already have an IEP that's active reported to the department that is valid on October 31st, okay? So make sure that that IEP element there is valid, okay? If no reported IEP is valid on October 31st, then the value in this element will be ignored. So basically what that's just letting you know is that there is no IEP or valid IEP that's reported by October 31st, then the value in this element will be ignored, okay? But if there's any valid IEP that is reported, okay, you want to make sure that the element is valid. So a lot of you guys are saying, Tim, what are you talking about? Okay, well, basically with these FN270 reporting, and a lot of you guys don't have these instances, okay, where the LRE is actually reported with IEPs, okay? If it's not, that's when the FN270 will take effect. But for a lot of you guys as IEPs, I believe you guys have the LRE pretty much set in place there. So that's not something that you have to worry about as it pertains to the FN270 reporting, okay? But like I said, sometimes I've had instances down here in Cincinnati where it's been reported. But like I said before, a lot of you guys have the LRE established when the IEP or the RIEP is established. Okay. So you guys are in the clear there. This here, just going over a little bit more in terms of additional information on FN270 reporting. I'm not going to pretty much touch base on this as, like I said before, a lot of you guys' LREs are pretty much established when the IEP is basically confirmed and created, okay, for those students. So like I said before, if you have any questions pertaining to this, because they have made changes to the FN270 reporting, like I said before, you can just put in a ticket with me and I can just go over everything with you there. Okay. But just kind of giving you a heads up, this is just more pretty much a breakdown of the FN270 reporting. Okay. For a status code, and this is for your 03 status code. Okay. This here is for your CIEPs, and this is for the most recent IEP. There should be no disability. And this is going to be a warning reflected in your level 2 reports. Okay. So whenever you see this this 003 status code, this is going to be classified in your level 2s as a warning. Okay. Typically, this is for your source codes 8, okay, which is your GE record. And of course, where your flag is going to be reflected as an N. So of course, you know what that N, that means that your district is not getting anything for these particular students. So you want to make sure, go back and you want to verify the events and confirm that the student's disability code is being reported as ending on the date of the CIEP event. No, now those events will be in either same goal when you guys are, of course, setting up the actual student's information for special ed, or if you're manually putting that information in, that is going to be in your student profile underneath your special education tab when you're setting up your IEPs. Okay, a lot of you guys are familiar with this, but just kind of, hammering that point in. Of course, you guys know if the disability code on the student attributes, that is your FD tab. Okay, your effective date is not reported as ended. Mark the correction and submit your updated EMIS data. Okay, so that's letting you know. I know in same goal that in the FD tab, it actually updates those dates. Okay, but if it does not import correctly or whatever you guys are having an issue with that actual import, you want to make sure that the disability code and the student attributes in your FD record, okay, is basically being reflected with those changes. If it is not reflected, it's going to throw everything off, okay, in your level 2 reports to where it's going to hold up funding for your district. So you want to make sure that those categories are updated. Any questions with that? It's quiet, so I didn't know. Any questions in the chat, Shelly, at all? I didn't know if there was any questions in there either.
No, there was just a reminder, which is a good for that FN 270 that is on the FN tab in, student's profile. Cause I know I couldn't find it, I had to ask for it, so, it's, what is it called, the October count? So it's a reminder, cause it's in a weird place.
Yes, yes, yes.
Oh, it was called the FN 270, I didn't think to look there.
And I'm sorry, I apologize. I should have went ahead and gave you guys a snapshot of that. But like I said before, with this status code there with 03, this is just going to give a warning. Okay. So like I said before, this is all about these status codes, really, guys. It's just basically just letting you know, okay, you guys just want to make sure and verify that all the information is correct there. Okay. And basically, if it's off, just basically going back to those actual profiles and seeing what exactly is off course there to where you guys can get it fixed and resubmit it. Okay. Your status code FC0004. This is the no IEP reported for October 31st, and this is going to produce a fatal error in your level 2 reports. Now, with these no IEPs, the source code 5 for no IEP reported. Now, like I said before, sometimes when people establish IEPs or whatnot towards the end of the year or in the summer, a lot of times when it goes to the new year, it basically won't carry over to the new year. Okay. And a lot of times what'll happen is you have to establish that no IEP until actually, those dates or whatnot are changed accordingly throughout the course of the year. So you guys can get funding or whatnot up until that no IEP is updated. Okay. Of course, you know that with your flag, it's going to give an indication of no, which, like I said before, is going to indicate to your district that they're not receiving funding for that particular student. So you just want to make sure or whatnot that you guys get that information in and update it accordingly. Okay. So you want to make sure and verify for your student special education event records as of October 31st that that information is updated and as accurate as possible. Verify the most recent IEP that was reported, okay, in EMIS, okay? And if that most recent IEP is not being reported, you just want to go ahead and report an NIEP, okay, in those cases, so that your district can get the appropriate funding or whatnot until an active IEP is established. Any questions pertaining to this code? This code is frequently seen on level 2 reports. So I just wanted to make sure and kind of clear up anything if you guys have any questions pertaining to this code here. Nothing. Okay. So in ODDEX, and I'm glad they put this snapshot up here. This snapshot here is basically giving you a breakdown of what you'll see for the particular student and under the special education data tab. Okay. So basically what this is just letting you know is, okay, what the outcome and what the IEP this particular student was on, the event date, all that information that you guys are putting or importing from same goal, and it's in your student profile for special education. All that information is in ODDEX as well for you to review. Okay. So for example, if you're getting a kid that's coming from another district and you guys are saying, hey, why is this not matching up with the special ed or whatnot? You guys can go in and review in ODDEX what that particular school had as far as with the event type, okay, which is letting you know what kind of IEP they had. what the outcome was, okay? And if there's anything special pertaining to those IEPs, basically you can verify with that district or whatnot in terms of what to look out for, okay? It'll let you also know what the event date was and when that took place. So this is a good tool to use in terms of just letting you guys know which IEP those kids were on and whether or not when the event date was established, okay? So this is a nice snapshot to use. This is, like I said before here, and I'm pinpointing here the special education tab. And like I said, it's going to give you a nice summary here of each event date for that particular year. Okay. So for your NIEP, the date types, okay, and keep this in mind. For your NIEP events for expired or non-transferable IEPs, you got two codes. You got your code 10, which is student newly transferred in, and the IEP adoption determination not complete, services being provided based on prior IEP. Now you're saying, Tim, where can I find these actual codes or where to put them in? These are going to be under the student profile, under the special education section there, where you're inputting the NIEP. It's going to give you that option there to go in there and look at the actual code. So, like I said before, and here I can go in here and just kind of give you a visual if you guys are not aware, okay? And like I said, feel free to stop me if you guys have any questions or whatnot. Hold on here. I'm going to go in here in our test section here and just give you guys right, can everybody see this here? And this is just a test screen here. Everybody can see it there. Can everybody see it, Shelly? Are we good?
Yes, we can see it.
So we can't hear you.
We can't hear you, but you need to be at the TCCSA test, not ITC.
Hold on here.
I know they're right next to each other.
I'll go to Mickey Mouse this time. Can you guys hear me?
Now we can.
Okay, great. Okay, so typically when you're inputting, IEPs, okay, this here is all going to be in this screen here. And I just wanted to show you guys, okay, just to kind of give you a visual for those who are not using the same goal. Now, Shelly, is every district using the same goal? Is it just half or?
Every single one uses the same goal.
Okay, great. Okay, well, there's no need for me to even go into this here. This is just kind of giving you a visual in terms of if
But
it was.
not every district does the export-import process. Some people still manually enter.
Gotcha. Okay, so whenever you guys are going in here, this is the screen in which you would go ahead for the NIEPs, okay? You guys could just go ahead and make your case there to input that information in, okay? So those two codes that they brought up, which is going to be your code 10, okay, and code 11, you want to make sure or whatnot that you guys have that information in there to where you guys can go ahead and it'll reflect to ODE to let you guys know, hey, this is what this particular NIEP is representing. This code is basically pertaining to the NIEP at this moment. Okay. Now, is there any questions pertaining to NIEPs? Because I know that's a big issue here with some of you guys in your districts here. Any questions to that?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and switch back here. Give me 1 second here. All right, can everybody see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So for the NIEP events using a non-compliance reason of 12, can be used until the end of the IEP that did not get reported to EMIS, okay? So also keep that in mind for the reason of 12 that can be used, okay? So that's not like that's not an option for you guys, okay? But like I said, when establishing your NIEPs, you want to make sure that code 10 and 11 is used. Okay, so that lets ODE know that, hey, your district is working on it or whatnot. We're trying to get this IEP updated or whatnot due to the fact that it may be out of compliance for the moment. We may not have those services set up for this particular student. We're working on it. Okay. Or the student, like I said before, basically had transferred in and we're trying to get those services established. Okay. So that's for your NIEP date type there. Status code of 005, okay? This here indicates that the student does not meet inclusion filter in the district. So what this basically means is you're going to see 3 source codes for this particular filter, or excuse me, a status code. Code 5, which is no IEP reported. Code 7, which is the FN270 override, or your source code 8, which is the GE record. Okay. Of course, anytime that you have these warnings here, you're going to get the flag, which indicates that the district is not basically this is not being counted towards your district. Okay. So these indicates, okay, for your status code that shared students can have the status code at the educating district. Shared students where IEPs are not reported can also have the status code with source code 5, which is your no IEP reported. Okay. And this basically just is letting you know that if you need an explanation, okay, this is included in your USDOE count, okay, in that section, which I'll kind of touch base on here shortly in a few. But in your FC0005, a lot of these status codes do not show up or whatnot, as basically, like I said before, a lot of status codes you guys will receive is that 04, the 08, indicating that your IEP is active, okay? Occasionally, you guys may get this for your district, okay? This is just giving you a breakdown of what this actual status code entails and what to look out for. And also the 3 source codes that the status code here will basically fall up under, okay? And just elaborating a little bit further, okay? Also, like I said before, you'll also see the source code 9, which is your how received, okay? This here basically just indicating that for your non-public special education students receiving related services from reporting district with no IEP, reported as on October 31st, okay? So this report does not consider your ISPs, and if there's no IEP in place on October 31st, then the student is not included in the FCC report. Keep that in mind. For this status code, if there's no IEP in place, then the student is not included on this report. Okay, keep that in mind. Okay, so anytime you see the status code of the 005, okay, and there's no IEP in place by that particular date of the 31st, you're not going to see this kid on your FCC report. Okay. So multiple district tiebreakers, okay? And these tiebreakers are basically seen not too often, but every now and then in districts, okay? And this just kind of gives you a breakdown on what constitutes underneath these tiebreakers here, okay? So for multiple district tiebreakers, okay, this will count at the Buckeye United if reported by Buckeye United, and they give the IRN there, okay? Will count where the reporting IRN is equal to the district of residence IRN, okay? Or counts where reporting IRN is reporting a how received code of M. And this is to community schools or STEM districts. Just wanted to kind of touch base. I know a lot of you guys probably don't see this here, but this is kind of just giving a breakdown here or whatnot, what those multiple district tiebreakers look like and what that information entails. I'm assuming, do any of you guys have any students that are going to community schools or whatnot up there? I don't think you guys even have community schools up there, do you guys?
We have 2, but they're
Okay,
not today.
okay. So basically, if there's any students there that are going to those community schools or STEM districts here, this is where the multiple district tiebreakers basically entail. Okay. Just kind of like I said, just giving you a breakdown or a quick summary of these actual district tiebreakers here. Any questions for you guys? Or if you guys are having any kids that are going to community or STEM districts there, Any issues you guys are having at this current time?
Nothing.
Okay. For your FC0006 status code here, this here is the students counting at an alternative district, okay? These students do not count in your district, okay? So here they get below a whole bunch of source codes here, okay? In which the 06 FC status code entails, okay? Now for this status code here, for the 06 status code, has there been any districts that have been getting this status code here? This has been coming up down here in Cincinnati a little bit more, but I didn't know how it was up there.
Worcester City, and Trisha. Oh, and Loudonville.
Oh, wow. Okay. So,
Oh, yeah, I think everybody.
oh, okay. Okay. So these here source codes down below would basically apply to the 06 status code. Okay. So if there is no IEP reported, of course, you guys know that you want to verify the special education events, okay, that need to be reported for that particular students. If you have a source code 7, that's your FN270, that's on your FN tab there in Dazzle. You want to make sure for source code 8, make sure that it's a valid GE record, okay? Source code 9 and source code C. This is your how received. Okay. So all these source codes, you guys want to just go back and just verify and make sure that these students with your special ed coordinators, make sure that these source codes that you guys are receiving for this status code, just want to make sure that the students, like I said before, that the information is just updated and just as accurate as possible. Okay. These students, keep in mind, count at the IRN and the Fed count. This is the alternative IRN column, okay? So in your level 2 report, in that alternative column for the IRNs, you'll see the status code here applied to those particular students, okay? So you want to make sure also that you review your data in ODDEX and compare it to how the data is being reported. Sometimes I've had cases where in ODEX, it may read something and then insist it may have something else. So you guys want to make sure that you verify that with a fine tooth comb and make sure that you guys are communicating with the districts to make sure that you guys are making sure that how the student is being reported, make sure that is accurate. Sometimes I've had districts where there's no communication involved, and now it's almost developed like an EMIS rivalry between the districts because this district is reporting it this way, and you guys may have it another way, or they're just not telling you what's going on. So you guys want to make sure that you guys are communicating that information amongst each other. Okay. Like I said before, with this particular code, this is all about communication and just making sure that the information is reported correctly. Okay. So it won't cause any issues moving forward for your districts. Okay. Any questions to this particular code? Have you guys been having any issues with this code here in terms of getting it off your level 2?
There's nothing. We're good.
All right. For status code, and this is for your 07 status code, okay? This is here where the student is excluded, okay? Where the conflict and where the student should count, okay? So this is going to be for your 2 codes here, your FN270 override, which is source code 7, or source code 8, and this is your GE record. Okay, so of course you're going to have the flag, which is going to indicate a no there. Okay, so basically for these status codes students here, ODE is basically letting you guys know that they could not determine where the student should count. So the student will not be counted at either entity. Okay, so because they couldn't establish where the student was counted, they're saying, hey, we're not going to count the student at either district. Okay, so you want to go ahead and review your information in ODEX. Okay, and like I said before, once again, communication is key just to make sure that you guys are on the same page to where the student could initially be accounted moving forward. Okay, but anytime you see the status code, this student is excluded. So you want to make sure that you verify the information to make sure that that information in SIS and same goal is being reported accurately. Okay. Status code 008. And like I said before, this is more informational more than anything. Okay. This is letting you know that you guys do not have any errors identified with ODE processing. Okay. So for all these status code here, 008, hey, you guys can kind of breathe a sigh of relief. This is letting you know that, hey, all this information that you guys have in terms of this status code, this is just informational data. So there's no need for you to go in and change, no need for you guys to alternate or communicate with other districts or whatnot. This is just informational for you guys to have and letting you guys know that these excuse me, sorry, that these status codes here and that all this information is valid for your district. Okay. So just if you want a time to time check, you guys can check that for accuracy. Okay. You guys can basically kind of filter in and say, okay, who has these disability conditions? What's their LREs? Okay. And basically, like I said before, just communicating with your special ed department there just to make sure that, hey, this is who we have that's valid in our district. And they can say, okay, this kind of looks and checks out correctly. So this is just giving you an indication there, okay, that you guys are on the same page. This is great news. Then we can just focus on the other ones and kind of get those fixed so the district can get all the necessary funding possible, okay? So just to review, you just want to make sure that all the status codes have been reviewed and basically all your reporting issues have been corrected. When the corrections have been made in the student information system, okay, make sure that that information gets updated. If it does not process, just give it a day or so to which that data can reflect in your level 2 reports, okay? And based on your inclusion criteria, are all of your special education students being counted correctly? For this particular codes or whatnot, you just want to just go through them, check your 08 codes first, status codes first, just to make sure that everything aligns up. And then from then on, we can go ahead and just kind of move backwards or however you guys want to approach it. You guys can just go in and just make your necessary adjustments pertaining to your status codes there. Okay. So like I said, this is a good tool to pretty much use in terms of just verifying who's valid and who's correct. Okay. In terms of on your report. Now it's 10:32. I didn't know if you want me to finish. All right. All right, everybody. Just this is a quick wrap up here. This is basically kind of this second phase of this FCC statement, or excuse me, FCC report training here. This here is just basically going to touch base on the actual federal child count statement that I was mentioning before. When you are going into your level 2 reports, you will see a actual child count statement, okay, which is an assurance report. What this report is doing is just breaking down which which disability each student has. Okay, now it's not going to give you the names, not going to give you any SSIDs, anything like that.
Time out. Tip.
Yes.
Great. You're distorted.
Somebody using the microwave.